My name is Asmussen. I am working in a company called Copenhagen Energy. We are also working with water, even though it is called Copenhagen Energy. But here I'm also representing Danish Water and Wastewater Association. And I've just brought with me here, you can see water in figures in Denmark. It's benchmarking figures. And it also says, what is DANVA? And I'll just read it here. DANVA is a Danish Water and Wastewater Association. Is a national association with 166 water companies as members. Members also include many contractors and personal members. The association represents the biggest water and wastewater companies in Denmark, and its members supply 90% of the Danish population. Now, why do I tell you that? I tell you that because Denmark is a very small country with 5.5 million people. And I know that there are companies here which has a size where they supply more than the population in Denmark. And if you look at Denmark, we have about 150 public-owned water companies and about 2,000 private water companies. So this is quite different, basements compared to when I look into this room here and see all the big utility companies which are here in the room. And this means that there are some very special challenges within data sharing and so on in all when we have all those companies in Denmark. I will try to put your attention to three different points. The first of all is a triangle between data model, interface, terminology and working processes. The second one is the data exchange with the surroundings, that we know that we are, as a water company, have to share data with our surroundings, and that's very important too. And then I'll give you an example of a data project in Denmark. So, starting up, data model interfaces. Some of the main benefits of having a data model for registration in Denmark. And when I say one data model, then it is really one data model which the DANVA organization has succeeded to build up for registration of pipes in wastewater and water systems. I'll tell more about this data model tomorrow. I have a little speech tomorrow also called the Digital Water Company. We have one data model for registration of pipes in Denmark. And this model has been developed with input from different water companies, consultants and suppliers. And I'm coming from the biggest water company in Denmark. We are supplying 1 million people, so we are quite big, even though we are many companies, water companies in Denmark. But we have chosen to be a big part in developing those data models because we can see it would not make much sense to go in and build a data model for our company alone. It shall be a model which also are used by our surroundings, by the companies around us. When we have one data model, we also can expect better products from our suppliers. They don't have to adopt to different data models in different companies. They can adopt to one data model and then they can hopefully create or develop a better product for us. When we are that many water companies in Denmark, there is also a lot of benchmarking. And how do we benchmark if we have our own individual data models? So one data model will also result in higher quality in benchmarking. Then we have a uniform way of data operation and storage, and it's easier to exchange data with the surroundings. And I'll just put a question out in the audience. Are there further arguments for having standards? But maybe we'll come back to that in the discussion. One very important thing we found out working with those data models and also starting using the data models in the different water companies in Denmark is that if it is not followed by a common terminology, then you can understand things in different ways. So as it says here, a pipe is not just a pipe. And we saw that when we had to benchmark towards our regulator, that in order to compare data, you really have to speak the same language. And I'll show you tomorrow in the Digital Water Company on our homepage that we have a homepage where you can go in and you can look at a terminology for registration of pipes, a homepage which all the different water companies can go in and they can look if they are not sure what the data model means with the different expression. They can go in via this homepage and they can see what is meant by this terminology. So again, a question you can put out in the audience: how do we ensure using the same terminology? And even though that there are many big companies here, I'm not quite sure if when we talk with each other, do we really, when we go really into details, do we mean the same things when we talk with each other? Again, is a pipe a pipe? It's a very, perhaps a little ridiculous example, but really, do we speak the same language when we speak about different things within water? I've just taken that with me, working processes, because working processes is also an important part when we talk about data and we talk about terminology. And I'll not go into this one here in details, just tell that you really need to put down your working processes and you have to describe your different working processes in your company. And the way we see it when we deliver from the experience we have with the data models is that it is not enough just to talk about data models or interfaces. It is as important also to talk about having the same terminology, and it is very important also to have really good described working processes. So this is a kind of triangle which you have to have your attention on all three parts of this triangle. Otherwise, it will not end up in a very good way. We have an experience of that in Denmark. So data models, interfaces must be seen in connection with terminology and working processes. Data exchange with the surroundings. This is quite a big topic. We can see in Denmark that we have to exchange data from water companies with our surroundings. This could be suppliers, our contractors. It can be from the government. They have a competition agency. They have other government agencies. They have town and landscape agencies. They have forest nature agencies. They have a national survey and catastrophe about geodata, which also is fed by, or it's have an interface to Inspire, which is a kind of EU way of looking at data. And then there is an environment agency. Then you have all the private companies in Denmark. And another thing which you can see on the left side is what I put in: district heating, gas, waste. We are only talking here today about water companies, But if we look at Copenhagen Energy, for instance, this is a multi-supplier. We also supply district heating and gas, and we do have different kind of basics. Some are clean water companies, but in other countries it is not only water companies but a multi-supplier. And then you also have to exchange data across a company like that. So I put in the middle here, you can see this sign in the middle, also open in the right corner, DDV, which is in Danish, or the digital water company. And we have put together this in one box and trying to make some guidelines and some common terminology and so for the whole country. And as I say, we will talk about that tomorrow. But it's also very important when we talk about data exchange with surroundings is that you have a very good infrastructure on your data. We talk here about IT architecture or enterprise architecture, that you really are very good in having this kind of architecture, that you can take data from economy systems to GIS systems, to SCADA systems, and vice versa. We also have a saying in our company, and I guess maybe you also have that saying, that data is our most important commodity. As I said, some people would say that, okay, it's our workers, our employees, it's our hardware and so on. Our claim is they are all important, but data is the most important thing that you own in a company. This could perhaps trick some questions later on, that claim. Then a project example, it is taken from Avedøre wastewater service. And this is a wastewater service which is owned by 10 suburban municipalities in the west of Copenhagen. And they said, now we want to take all the data from those 10 different wastewater companies which are around this wastewater services, and then we want to put it into one common data center. And how do we do that? Because you come into different companies which has done it in their own way until now, and suddenly we shall put it all into one common data center. And they have been running a project. You can see here it started in the second half of 2010, and it is going into operation now. I'll not go into details what they have been through in that project. You can see it here now about design of the data center, improving data, IT equipment, training, project management, and so on. My main point by showing this project here is that it would have taken 2 or 3 times as long if we didn't have a common data model for wastewater systems in Denmark. Just imagine that they are coming each with their model, and then they shall build a common data center. Now we have a nationwide data model for registration of pipes, and this is then the model they are putting it all into. In Copenhagen there are things happening now here also with companies going together. Copenhagen Energy will go together with 7 other water companies around Copenhagen, and we also have to take all those different water data from those different water companies and bring it into one model. Actually, in a couple of months' time, Copenhagen Energy will not exist anymore. It will come up with a new name, and it will be a bigger company. And this is what we can see in Denmark, that more and more of all those companies are going together in bigger units. And therefore, having those common data models, having terminology, and having working processes in place before they go together is a huge where you can save a lot of money and time if you have that in place before you go in and have these companies go together. So I know that you shall come with the questions, but I've just put up some questions here, some discussion points which we maybe can take later on. For instance, what is the driver for having standards in water company, as data standards in water companies? And do we have the same challenge from country to country? As you can see in Denmark, we have a huge challenge because we have all those different companies which are merging together, but in other countries there might be other challenges. Which benefits do we have from standardization in our countries? Are there some main benefits for standardization across countries? Can we get together and have some main benefits for standardization which is independent on how big or how small the different water companies are? An important one here, does management understand the need for standardization and digitization? I'm saying that because we have experienced also with all the smaller companies that the focus of management is somewhere else and not on data and standard and digitization. That is maybe some other people can work with that, but it really have to have management approach also to understand the need for standardization and digitization. Then the next question, do we have a clear picture of our surroundings in connection with exchange of data? This could also be very different from country to country, but we cannot live, if we look at data on an island, we have to exchange data with our surroundings. And do we have a clear picture of that? Could we learn from other branches? Which ones? I'm sure that there are other branches which may be ahead of us, talking about standardization within data, reuse of data, and could we learn from those other branches? And last question, do we use the right consultants? The question here is, normally, I can see it from our company, we use consultants which are very, very good in water solutions. But what we are talking about here are not water solutions. This is about data. And we have the fortune in Denmark that we have been through some situation where we had many municipalities going together in a fewer municipalities. And this has resulted in also getting data together, and that has created some consultants which are very, very good in getting data together. And this is independent if it's water or if it is another industry. And these are the consultants which we shall have to get in contact with in order to solve our problems around or our questions about data. So this is important that we use the right consultants when we talk about data. So that was my introduction to this panel discussion.